The Spinoff Podcast Network.
Talofa lava. I'm Madeline Chapman, editor at The Spinoff. If you have the means, consider supporting our high-quality journalism by becoming a Spinoff member. Sign up now at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is brought to you by Spark Lab, offering inspiration and practical advice to help businesses find their edge. To hear more about Spark Lab, including details about the latest events, workshops, and business tools, visit sparklab.co.nz. And now, here's your host, Simon Pound.
You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is made by The Spinoff with help from Callaghan Innovation, New Zealand's innovation agency. Here's your host, Simon Pound.
There are a few things that most fashion labels could only dream of. Launching on American Vogue, say, or having Kendall Jenner choose to wear and be shot and post to Instagram wearing your clothes twice in a week. Or having one of the world's leading showrooms in New York call you up and ask to represent a collection before you even have a full collection. Well, that is the journey today's guests have been on. Two school friends who started a vintage store together and made a few basics pieces that captured such a feeling that friends, fans and contacts helped make their small project become a runaway success that's now coming to the runway, with this local brand, Paris, Georgia, being selected as this year's Mercedes-Benz Presents designer for New Zealand Fashion Week. To talk the show, the journey and what's next, Paris Mitchell-Temple and Georgia Cherrie join us now. Kia ora, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, thanks so much for being here. And first, let's hear, so we've got Paris, hi.
Hi.
And Georgia.
Hello.
There we go. First up, tell us how you guys met. So, at school and even doing a fashion class.
Our love story.
I know. It's a good one. It's a good one.
So yeah, obviously went to school together. Met in third form. What's that, year 9? Year 9?
Yeah, we would have been like 13.
13.
Yeah.
Our mums happened to have an apartment in the same block. And then we were at school together, and I think I knocked on George's doorstep one day and it was just like, hi, I'm Paris. And then the friendship began.
I know, that was us.
Yeah, it was. And then we would kind of just hang out every day at school. It was just like, we had a bigger group, but...
Totally. It was sort of like us as this little duo. We went to Dio, and then we had like a lot of friends from AGS, and we would like bus straight to AGS after school and meet up with those girls. Like,
I know.
we were just a duo.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun.
And was fashion something that was always important to you two?
Yes. I mean, we did fashion at school. My family could tell you, like I was always drawing clothes, shoes, mainly shoes actually as a little girl, getting the builders at our house to like make wooden platforms on my sneakers and tape them to my sneakers. So I think fashion was always like a thing for me. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I started like my first internship for Keith Matheson when I was like 13 in the school holidays. So, you know, always something that I really wanted to do as well. And I think when we met each other at school, we pretty quickly, like, we were in fashion class together, and from there, it's something we've talked about for a long time.
Yeah.
And after school and into uni and then off overseas, where were you both before you came back to start the label?
So I was working in New York. I landed a job at American Vogue there as the assistant to the design director, Raul Martinez. So I and I guess the position I had was coined as Anna Wintour's fourth assistant. Wasn't the official title, but hilarious, I know, like just the fourth one. So, yeah, I had done my...
So how did you land? So, I landed a job at American Vogue.
Yeah.
And how does one end up working in one of kind of the most coveted kind of workplaces in the world?
It's crazy, wasn't it? God, it was a grueling interview process. And I knew Gabrielle Merkin, who is a sister of one of my friends who was like a designer there, graphic designer there. She told me about this role. So, yeah, just got involved with I created like a website and portfolio and things. And I had next to no experience, so I was just kind of like trying my best to have something to show them. Anyway, they saw interview process was, intense. And then,
And were you living in New Zealand at the time?
No, I'd made the move to New York, before that started. But I had no idea where I was going to end up there. So it was, It
was to follow the dream of working kind of in fashion and in the world's leading city?
Absolutely. But I think my goal was to more work at a label at the time. So to work for a publication was definitely new, but it's actually what led me to styling and having an interest in editorial and how a shoot's put together and everything like that.
And how about you, Georgia?
I was living in Barcelona. So I lived there for 4 years where I did my university studies and I studied fashion marketing, which wasn't really a course available here. And I had this opportunity to move to Barcelona and study at the European Institute of Design. And I just went for it. And it was amazing. So I was there for 3 years studying. And then I lived there for a year, basically, having a holiday. And then came back to New Zealand. And it was really perfect timing because Paris was coming back from New York. I was coming back from Barcelona. We had both sort of done our university and work experience and internships in different fields, but same industry. And that's when it all began.
And what about the bright, exciting lights of Auckland brought you back from those backwaters of New York and Barcelona?
I mean, it was not the plan. This is the thing. It's sort of like we came back and we started what we did. And we always say that one of, the most amazing things about what we do is that it keeps us connected to those places, maybe not specifically Barcelona, but Europe and America. And we love the fact that we can travel and stay connected there.
And you can run a business from here. It's possible.
Tell me how you started the idea for the mercantile and the vintage shopping.
I know. Well, I guess it all sort of started because we were back. We didn't have jobs yet. We were young. We were fearless. And we always said that was a big part of being able to do what we did because we were young and there wasn't much to lose and, got to be in to win and give it a go. So we came up with the idea of selling vintage but in a really editorial and then presenting it and communicating it in a really editorial-like sense, rather than sort of just on eBay or Etsy, which it was really at that time. I know it's a really popular idea now.
And you can see the pictures and they kind of smell like clothing bins and it just looks a bit mank.
Exactly. And we bought the pieces, we dry cleaned the pieces, we flew them back to New Zealand and shot them with an incredible photographer and used models, and it was very editorial driven, the whole concept. And
it really worked for a while there, and it was kind of what made the range happen, because we were trying to fill a gap in our vintage website to service beautiful tailored basics and then it started the range.
And how many pieces did you start with under the Paris, Georgia name, which kind of started out as the last listing on the website and then has just kind of kept sneaking up to then take the whole thing over?
Yeah.
And we took the basics off. We were Paris, Georgia Basics when we first started. Because the idea was to create really essential women's wear pieces to complement the vintage, made in New Zealand, which we still are. But it's taken over and the vintage became a lot sort of, the vintage, there was the demand there and we loved doing it. It was just kind of a resources and time issue we had to kind of prioritize.
Yeah.
It does sound kind of fun to go like, well, we'll fly off to Los Angeles and we'll select some
Springs.
vintage pieces. Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then come home and shoot them in a way that makes them feel like, just produced beautiful pieces.
Yeah.
But is that very scalable? Because I guess once you've sold one,
Oh, I know.
and you've done all that work for one piece.
That was the
not
problem.
the best business model, but it kind of brought us to where we are.
Yeah, and I mean, it, brought us to where we are, like, creatively and with the concept and the vision and everything like that, but also funded Paris, Georgia. Paris, Georgia is a completely self-funded label. We've had no investors. We flew to LA with the money between us that we had saved, doing kind of part-time jobs in Auckland. And the sales that we made from the vintage funded the ability to be able to do a sample range, which costs a lot of money, and then produce a collection in New Zealand and sell it to our retailers.
And paid for our flights over to New York to, go represent the range over there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and tell me about that journey to New York, because the vintage label actually brought you in an amazing customer who was one of the world's most influential fashion people.
Yeah, Mariam Nazar Zadeh. So she, you're right, was a top customer for us. And then this kind of like relationship was formed. And she really believed in what we were doing. And she was like, why don't you guys create a full range? So we did. And then, she really believed in us. And we took it over there.
And I think we did within the space of like 6 weeks or something.
Yeah, it was a bit.
It was crazy. And it was definitely, the mercantile that grabbed her attention, because what we were doing at that point in time was quite new and different.
So you had those 6 pieces you were saying, like the small basics range,
Yep.
and this woman who's runs a very influential showroom in New York. Had she come to know about the brand? Had you known her in New York, or did she find it through your media? So tell me about that first media, because the shop kind of launched on American Vogue, which, I mean, you had worked there, but that's a pretty wild thing to have happen.
Yeah, it was. It was so kind of them to be supportive. But I guess it's, it's all imagery related, and if they like what they see, and they supported us.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I think it was,
incredible.
they saw what we were doing as like a new concept in the sense of making vintage look really designer and really high end. So that grabbed their attention. And I mean, from there, we were so lucky. We had W Magazine, we had Style.com.
Yeah.
We
At the
had
time, it was
Al.
Style.com.
We had just, it was amazing.
Harper's.
Yeah.
So that can't just be kind and support, because it must have really captured a feeling of the moment that was of interest.
Yeah. And I even still look back to that imagery because it's funny. You can get really kind of, with your own imagery, you're around and you're surrounded by it so constantly. But that first shoot we did, I still love it so much.
Yeah,
I
me
think it was
too.
one of our strongest in its own little way. So, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And had you had plans to make a full collection? Because going from kind of 6 pieces that were, complementing and filling in gaps, to telling the whole story, and then making that decision and making it happen in 6 weeks, and then it working.
I know.
That's amazing.
I know. I don't know. We didn't set out with the basics to make a full range, did we, at all?
No, we
was-
didn't. It was such a natural growth, which was
Yeah.
like, we were really lucky with that.
Yeah, what were the stories you were wanting to tell, and what was the kind of like the woman you were designing for, and what made it so you could just kind of roll that out?
I mean, I think, Paris, Georgia Basics, the 2 pieces that we first designed that we still have in the range that are still some of our 2 top sellers, the Marnie suit and the Phoebe slip. Paris designed the Marnie suit to wear to a wedding, and I designed the Phoebe slip to wear to a wedding. Really simple, using beautiful Japanese fabric that we got from local supplier Wool Fabrics. And I think we did find a gap. I think that we couldn't find pieces that we wanted to wear to this wedding, and therefore we went out and sourced it ourselves. So it was like very natural, but at the same time, there was definitely a gap that we had sort of found, and that was essential women's wear, really high quality, kind of sculpting the figure. Really, like, a big part of what we do is praise the female form, and I think women were really drawn to that. So.
And really beautiful and luxe materials and kind
Yeah.
of drape and feel to it all. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, quite kind of like luxe and lovely, yeah?
Yes, sometimes we feel like we need to work on a more casual aspect of the brand, but that just kind of comes.
And how did it go with getting to New York and into the showroom and selling overseas? Like, did you have stockists here or did you just go straight to the international market?
Straight to the international market, right? Yeah.
Our first stockist that approached us was DeSaudre in Sydney. She's a really beautiful kind of like iconic little boutique in Darlinghurst, and she's sort of known for seeking out new designers. We were really lucky. She picked us up, and then from there it was straight into M&Z store, which was one of the most beautiful boutiques in New York. So
yeah. The Australian market's been really great for us though, followed by the US.
Yeah. And now obviously with the Mercedes-Benz Presents, opportunity and partnership, we are coming back here to focus, and it's really exciting.
How much of the business is currently New Zealand versus the world?
We were talking about this before. We'd probably say 70-30, 30% here, 70% international, but we want to grow here, and this is like the perfect opportunity for us.
Does that happen very often, that New Zealand labels are 70% international and then kind of build out the local afterwards?
I guess not.
I mean, New Zealand's such a beautiful market in the sense that the consumers here love to support local brands. That's something that we really want to get involved in. We're from here. We love being from here. Our clothes are made here. So no, I think a lot of brands can be solely here and have a really successful, viable business. So no, I don't think it's typical.
And how do you do it? Like, how are you physically able to support the activities and the interest and be doing enough stuff that's relevant to the local people that are interested in kind of buying these clothes in all of these markets?
I mean, we partner with some incredible showrooms. We have one in LA that's amazing. And then we have a showroom in Sydney as well. And then I guess it's just, it's been a very small team up until recently. We've hired a couple of people, but it's Paris and I, and it's just, we love what we do. So it's not as hard as you would think. You're just on it. You love it. You're making these connections. Obviously, with, the digital age that we're living in, everything becomes a lot sort of easier to stay in touch with that global market. And you kind of surround yourself in a community of like-minded people and support each other.
Yeah, and we're always pushing to shoot overseas, working with inspirational photographers and women that have interesting jobs, and often we use them as the models. Just always creating content wherever we are, because we obviously have such a great opportunity to travel and.
And tell me about the woman, as there's this list of these amazing people who choose to wear your clothes, whether they've got it from a showroom or whatever, but they're the kind of people that most people pay enormous amounts to wear them. Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, Katy Perry, Georgia Fowler, Kendall Jenner, these are some of the world's biggest names. How do you create those connections? And, are you surprised when they wear them, or do you know it's happening?
It's a bit of both, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're surprised, and sometimes you sort of get a lead that it's happening because the stylist will approach you. And again, it comes down to Instagram. It's such an important point of communication for any brand. It's sort of like your platform to create, the ultimate vision of your brand with the woman and the clothing. And we have stylists approach us and ask to borrow the clothes. So sometimes you don't know who it's for, and often, they have so many options that it's, it doesn't pull through, but yeah.
What was some of the kind of, does that then turn into more interest, more sales, or is it more awareness that means you get more boutiques supporting you? Do you see kind of the effect of, when Kendall Jenner, for example, just recently wore the things twice in a week, that's amazing. What happens to your business after that?
Yeah, it does really help, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. It's actually incredible, the influence that these girls have, and you don't realize it until it sort of happens. But yeah, it affects you straight down to the bottom line. Sales, we did pre-orders on the ruffle bodice, which Kendall wore, and because we knew we had to make it straight away. And then, retailers approaching and other celebrities wanting to wear your stuff.
Sometimes it's sad, though, that it comes down to the amount of followers or the fame that person has, and that, there's so many more interesting women wearing our clothes too.
Yeah.
And it can be a funny one to get your head around.
It is a funny one, yeah. Because there's some women that wear our stuff that really excite us, that are really, and then you have
inspiring to us, but and then, hey... comes down to Kendall's followers.
And they are also amazing business people and
of course,
current media kind of moguls in their own right.
Sure.
These absolute top Instagram influencers, aren't they?
No, we're so grateful for the support.
In terms of like the stylist community and stuff, like there have been some kind of times when your clothes have been picked up, like the cover of the Imprint magazine with the woman sitting on the toilet on the telephone.
That was homework.
I know, I love that.
Like many
Hayley Baldwin, right?
Many people might have seen it. So Hayley Baldwin sitting on the toilet with her underwear down in your slip dress and talking on the telephone.
I mean, she'd never made it look so good.
And that it was a cover of a magazine, but also it's had hundreds and thousands of likes and shares on the internet. And what does something like that do for your business?
God, that was such a long time ago.
It really was.
It's
it was
funny because
what does that do for our business?
Just it helps create traction, doesn't it? Just starts you off, gives you momentum. That was a long time ago, and it's funny to think, like, did that photo actually translate into sales in a way? I mean, it would have somehow, but...
Yeah, everything's a stepping stone
it
for
is.
Sure, but
And it creates relevancy with all the people who you're talking to, and other media get interested. And so do you cultivate those stylist relationships yourselves?
Yes, we try to. I mean, we're always in contact with stylists and sending them our lookbooks, and obviously agencies also have a huge impact with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's just so important that you're always on top of these creative people and the stylists and editors, and just making sure that you know, like, who's doing what, because...
And what they're after. Like, our range plan is, you've got your wearable pieces, you've got, your tailored beautiful pieces that are classics and remain through the collection. Then you've got your press pieces, your editorial pieces. So we're learning about all of that, but I think we're getting it.
Tell us about what a press piece or an editorial piece is. That kind of the edge of fashion where you kind of have to be extraordinarily kind of confident and fashionable to pull them off, and then you've got your more wearable pieces that are...
Yeah, or it's something that can be shot beautifully. You can see it in a magazine. I would describe it like that. Would you?
Definitely.
Tell me about the Fashion Week Mercedes-Benz Presents show. Had you shown at Fashion Week before?
No, we hadn't. We did a presentation in Sydney for our last resort collection, so that was this year. That was at Fred's, a restaurant in Sydney. So we had a little practice run, but that was very much so a presentation where we kind of street casted the whole thing. So we used like what we call our muses, Paris Georgia muses, which we've got a campaign around. But it was casting women that wear our clothes. In turn, they all are friends and know each other. So it was kind of like this awesome girl gang we had in Sydney. And it was a little bit of a show. So, yeah, we got some practice. But this is our first proper fashion show. Yeah.
And are you doing any of those kind of ideas of the muses in the show as before?
Yeah, we're trying to keep that strong in there for sure, having lots of diversity and women that, are our friends and we admire. And, of course, like, it balances out with models as well. But, yeah.
Because it makes it kind of more real, doesn't it? There's something funny about fashion where, if fashion was something that was doing its job properly and making everyone look great, you wouldn't have to put it on the most genetically gifted people in the world to sell it. And then when you get these people going, it's cool, look, it's cool, we paid these people all this money to wear it, so it must be cool. You're like, well, no, actually, like really cool things are when people who are already cool choose to wear it. And that seems to be something that is really present in what you guys do, you two do as a label.
Definitely. It's something that's always been like core of our values. And I think it sort of was like our story and how we started with Miriam in New York, and she has this girl gang of really impressive women that are creatives and just so
and it's
inspiring.
like supporting your community. It's like
Absolutely.
encouraging each other and being supportive of
Inclusive.
Yeah.
And, definitely. Yeah.
And so what's next for the label?
Oh my God, so much.
Ooh la la.
What is next?
Something's happening locally, which we can't tell you about. But that'll be November, December.
Yeah.
We have a collaboration coming out with an accessories, so bags and shoes brand called By Far. They're actually they're top selling accessories on Net-a-Porter.
Yeah, and then last year Forbes awarded them top 10 fashion brands of 2018. So they are an incredible group of women, Bulgarian, and we met them in Paris, and it was just this really natural sort of
progression.
Yeah. And we've been really kind of lucky, I guess, they were buying our clothes and they love what we do, and we suggested a partnership. So we are the first brand that they're doing a collaboration with. And their stuff, if you're familiar with the brand, is like Beyonce, Rihanna, like Bella, they're really the brand of the moment for accessories. So
yeah,
really big
designed
one.
some shoes and bags with them.
That's so cool to be able to fill out your story as well.
Absolutely.
You're just starting to do handbags, leatherware and shoes is a pretty big thing to have to bite off it all yourself, and being able to do it as a partnership to learn.
Absolutely, because I would say one of the hardest things about starting a brand is the production and the sampling side of things, and then it's taken care of for us with this partnership.
Get to focus on the design.
Yeah, it's such a treat.
Which
really
can
is.
honestly be just stripped away from you with your own range even,
Yeah, like what's it like going through that kind of growth in just a few very short years, and having to service international markets and travel for them and work on crazy timescales of being in different...
The fashion cycle's crazy.
And you would have been working 2 jobs at the start, and you were just saying that you've brought on extra team. How's it been kind of growing and learning and building out through that process?
I mean, we've been able to keep, because we are so small, we've been able to have, oversee every decision made, which keeps the brand so authentic to us, which is super important, and we always want that.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And I think, we've been kind of in a position where exciting things just keep you going. The momentum's happening, and we love what we do. We really, really do. So, every day is exciting, as cheesy as that sounds, as cliche as that sounds. It's true. You're just...
And then we think we're coming up for air, and we're get to have a little break. And then you're oh no, now we're doing this.
Yeah, it's next season already.
Yeah.
No, we love it.
Did people tell you it couldn't be done? Like that you shouldn't start a label, and they can't make it in New Zealand, and you won't be able to sell overseas?
And when you're young, hearing that, and you're starting, and you put everything into this, it is daunting. Definitely people would be fashion's hard, and you're just oh.
Yeah.
But
and I think they see 2 young women, and I remember hearing that so many times, and I think that's why at the beginning, we were sort of playing things down, and we're just doing this, that. You don't want to be too confident about things, because you are. Yeah, of course, it's a genuine concern. But like I said, we were young and more fearless than we would be now. And I think starting something young is such an advantage. I think you're fearless, and I think that's a huge opportunity.
And you can't doubt yourself in this industry. You have to be so clear with your vision and what you want. Yeah. No room for doubt.
What advice do you have for people who, because I really believe there's always room. It doesn't matter how crowded or how hard an industry is. If you've got a unique perspective and the drive, there's always room. What advice do you have for people who might be wanting to make a dream happen?
Would come down to, I think, mentors are so important. We're always seeking new mentors, and every conversation you have with someone in the industry is valuable, even if you just take one thing from it. I think pushing yourself to get as much experience, and because those questions you kind of can't ask them later down the track. Well, you can, of course, but it's get the experience, because once you start, you can't go do an internship somewhere. Well, yeah, you could, but
Yeah,
busy.
no, I would say the same. We've had some incredible people sort of surround us, obviously starting with Miriam, and that is just like, invaluable to your brand, So I think, and people kind of get really headstrong and they don't want to seek advice from people, but that would be our one thing in hindsight too. I'm like, oh my gosh, we've learned so much, if someone had told us this earlier. It all helps.
And how do you define success? Like, what will be, if you're from looking from the outside, like, I'm totally sure it's been crazy hard, but, some amazing kind of results in this time frame. And what will be success for you?
I mean, I think there's definitely two layers to success. And, I think we've definitely kind of achieved the most important one, which is loving what you do. I think everyone's worked a job before that they didn't enjoy, and we know what that's like. Sunday comes, you dread waking up on Monday, and I haven't had that feeling in years. So for me, that's success, just loving that. And, sort of the second layer is, we have a huge vision for the brand, and that's to be, one of the kind of most recognized.
Most recognized.
Like ready to wear sort of women's labels. And, when we reach that point, I think that would be another tick for us. So we're still kind of, treading along to make that second one happen, but we've definitely achieved the first one. It feels really good.
And it's like lifestyle, I was going to say.
Absolutely.
Choosing something that you love, that works with your the lifestyle you want. Travel's important to us. We take holidays when we need to. It's lifestyle driven.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, thank you for coming and sharing the story today, Georgia Cherrie and Paris Mitchell-Temple of Paris, Georgia, who are the Mercedes-Benz Presents Designers showing at New Zealand Fashion Week this year.
Woo!
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you to Alice Webb-Liddell for producing, and thank you very much for having us along and listening.
You've been listening to Business is Boring, presented by Simon Pound. And brought to you by the Spinoff and Callaghan Innovation.
From the Spinoff Podcast Network, that was Business is Boring, brought to you by SparkLab. Make sure you're following Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on SparkLab, visit sparklab.co.nz. Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tāmaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today. The Spinoff Podcast Network.